The first time I heard my name echo through the ballroom microphone, it wasn't my own voice. It was my mother's.
Of? Deanna Michelle Cooper.
The sound cut through the chandeliers, glitter, and the hush of anticipation like glass shattering. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The Ritz, Carlton's grand ballroom, 200 investors, journalists, and executives in black suits and sequined gowns turned their eyes toward the doors. And in that heartbeat, I knew they had found me. But let me rewind. 12 years of. I didn't spend 3 years starving on instant noodles and coding through migraines just to have my launch day remembered as a family scandal. I built Medivera Diagnostics from nothing. No trust fund, no family loans, no cushy network of friends. My empire was paid for in sweat and loneliness. And today was supposed to be redemption. The room was a cathedral of ambition. Velvet drapes muted the city noise outside, leaving only the hum of expectation. On the towering screen behind me, our logo pulsed in soft blue light, a promise to revolutionize how hospitals detect disease. For months, my team and I rehearsed every click, every slide, every word. This was the moment. And then the doors burst open. Gasps rippled through the audience as security scrambled. My mother, draped in fury and cheap pearls, pushed through like a general leading a hopeless war. Behind her, my father shuffled, apologetic, silent, carrying years of complicity in the slope of his shoulders. And Marcus, my brother, my shadow, my undoing, trailed them. He was thinner than I remembered, his eyes jittering, his arm in a cast like a prop he didn't deserve. I should have been shocked. Instead, I felt the cold confirmation of a nightmare rehearsed too many times in my head. Stop this circus. My mother shouted, her heels hammering against marble. These people deserve to know the truth. A murmur rose. Phones appeared in hands. The atmosphere, seconds ago electric with possibility, shifted into voyeuristic curiosity. But here's the secret no one knew. I had been waiting for this. Not hoping. Not wanting. Waiting. Because predators circle when they smell blood, and my family had bled me for decades. Today, for once, I wasn't prey. I placed both palms on the podium, grounding myself in the wood's ridges. My voice was steady when I leaned toward the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, this is my family. A few nervous chuckles rippled. My mother's smirk widened, mistaking acknowledgement for surrender. She raised her chin, triumphant, ready to spin her rehearsed performance. But the truth is, the story didn't begin here. It began in silence. The silence of an emptied college account the week before my freshman year. The silence of nights working triple shifts while my classmates studied. The silence of returned calls unanswered. Letters unopened, messages blocked the moment I asked for help. It began with Marcus. Always Marcus, my brother with bottomless hunger. The boy who once stole my laptop to pay for cocaine, who pawned heirlooms to cover bets, who turned every crisis into an emergency stamped. Family first. My parents called it love. I called it survival at my expense. And now, in front of the world, they were staging their masterpiece. Tell them. My mother barked at me, finger stabbing the air. Tell these people how you let your brother rot, while you hoard millions. I didn't move. Not yet. Because when liars perform, the cruelest thing you can do is let them talk. James Mitchell. Venture capitalist, skeptic. 12 years of potential savior with $50 million in his briefcase, shifted uncomfortably in the front row. His gaze flicked between me and my family, calculating risk. Dr. Harrison from Mount Sinai actually rose, coat in hand, already deciding if he'd walk out. The stakes weren't just my dignity. They were my company, my employees' jobs. Of Years of invention that could save thousands of lives. And all of it could unravel, right here, because blood knew no boundaries. I exhaled slowly, steadying my heartbeat. A woman in a black suit leaned against the far wall, unnoticed by most. But I saw her. She carried a leather case. Her eyes sharp as blades. My failsafe. My anchor. My reminder that this time, I wasn't defenseless. My mother was still pacing, weaving the narrative with the precision of a courtroom actress. We sacrificed everything for her. Her father worked 2 jobs. I took double shifts. Our retirement gone. Our health gone. So she could live in her penthouse and pretend she's self-made. The audience shifted, sympathy bending toward her like grass in a storm. My employees, my people, looked confused, doubtful. And in that moment, I felt the old fear rise. The child in me, shrinking, wanting to defend, to justify, to beg them not to hate me. But I didn't, because this was not the story of a victim. This was the story of a reckoning. So I leaned into the microphone again, letting silence sharpen every word. You want the truth. My voice rang clear across the ballroom. Then let's tell it. The chandeliers hummed in the stillness. 200 people leaned in, phones recording. 12 years of headlines already writing themselves, and with the calm of someone who has rehearsed a lifetime for this moment. I prepared to set fire to the lies. That's section 1. A cinematic opening that frames the confrontation as a suspenseful film, like moment while layering backstory and emotional stakes. The silence that followed my words was the kind that bends air. A silence pregnant with judgment, with cameras rolling, with my life balanced on a razor's edge. My mother thrived in silence like this. It was her stage. She lifted her chin as though the chandelier light was her spotlight. You want the truth? She sneered. Fine, here it is. 12 years of. My daughter lives in a $4 million apartment while her brother faces death threats from men you wouldn't survive a minute with. And she calls herself successful. She's selfish, heartless. Everything she has, her voice cracked, perfectly timed, was built on our sacrifice. A murmur rustled through the crowd. Sympathy tilted. I caught the sideways glances from people who had once clapped at my vision. Doubt is contagious. It doesn't need proof, only volume. Marcus stepped forward then, the cast on his arm trembling as he lifted it for the audience to see. They broke this last week. Next time it'll be worse. She could save me with 1 wire transfer. His eyes darted across the crowd, seeking pity like oxygen. But she'd rather let me die. A phone's tilted higher, recording. Somewhere near the front, a reporter mouthed the words, she'd rather let me die, as she typed. No doubt framing the story before I'd spoken a defense. I swallowed hard. The child in me wanted to scream, wanted to list every shift I worked, every scholarship I lost, every humiliation I endured while Marcus gambled my future away. But years of manipulation had taught me. The louder I defended, the guiltier I sounded. So I stood still, and that infuriated my mother. Do you see? She cried, spinning toward the audience, arms wide like a preacher. That coldness, that silence. We raised her for 27 years, fed her, clothed her, gave her every opportunity. And now she abandons us. My father's voice joined in, heavy with exhaustion, but laced with accusation. What? Marcus's casted arm hung in the air trembling, his plea still vibrating through the ballroom. She'd rather let me die. It should have broken me. Once, it would have. But instead, a strange calm settled over me. The kind that comes just before a storm. I glanced across the crowd. Rows of expensive watches, sharp suits, and restless eyes. People weren't here for my family's drama. They were here for proof that I could lead a company worth millions. And in their silence, I realized this was the test. not of my technology, but of me. My mother pressed her advantage. "Look at her," she hissed, gesturing to me with trembling hands. Not even a tear. Not even shame. What kind of daughter refuses her own blood? And then, as if choreographed, my father did something that twisted the air tighter than a noose. He dropped to his knees. The marble floor caught the sound of impact. Gasps rippled. 200 pairs of eyes widened as a 60-year-old man knelt, palms pressed together, voice breaking. "Please, Diana. I'm begging you as your father. Don't let your brother die. Don't let our family be destroyed." It was theater at its rawest. Desperation painted across his face. His body bent like a penitent before God. My employees shifted uncomfortably, investors frowned, and sympathy swung hard. In that moment, I was no longer Diana, the CEO. I was Diana, the villain. The child in me quivered. The child who once stayed up all night sewing her father's torn work shirts. The child who wanted nothing more than to be enough. But another voice rose inside, louder. The voice forged in empty bank accounts, in nights studying under fluorescent light after 12-hour shifts. In years of silence that weren't mine but theirs. That voice said, "This ends here." I stepped away from the podium, my heels clicking like gavel strikes. "Get up, Dad." My tone was flat, cutting. "You don't get to kneel after years of watching me crawl." A collective shiver passed through the crowd. My mother's head snapped toward me, eyes blazing. Marcus blinked, momentarily thrown off script. "You think this is about pride?" I continued, my voice carrying across the chandeliers. "It's about theft, lies, and the price of enabling a man who has burned every bridge he's ever touched." My hand slid into my handbag, fingers brushing the edge of a sealed envelope. I didn't pull it out. Not yet. But I let its weight ground me. The audience shifted again, tension like a needle snapping between sympathy and suspicion. Mitchell leaned forward now, eyes sharp, recognizing a different kind of performance. My mother tried to recover, voice trembling. "Don't believe her. She's twisting everything." But I cut her off, finally raising my own voice. "You want the truth?" I said, the words ringing like a verdict. "Fine. Let's talk about my college fund." The silence that followed wasn't sympathy, it was shock. And it was mine, too. That's section 3. The midpoint twist, the father's kneeling scene, turns the room against Diana. But instead of crumbling, she pivots. For the first time, she seizes control and drops the bomb about her stolen education fund. Flipping the balance of power. Begged her privately. She refused. We had no choice but to come here. The words landed like blows. No choice. As if their intrusion was necessity, not strategy. As if I had forced their performance. Investors shifted in their chairs. I watched one of the Japanese delegates close his notebook. James Mitchell leaned back, arms crossed, calculating. The air smelled of collapsing faith. Sarah, my CFO, hovered near the stage, eyes frantic. "Do something." But I shook my head. Running explanations now would only feed the performance. Because I knew my parents. Their cruelty was never random. It was rehearsed, and like any play, they needed an audience. The problem was, tonight, they had the perfect one. My mother's voice softened suddenly, trembling with feigned vulnerability. "We're not asking for much," she whispered, letting tears slide down her cheeks. "Just family helping family. The way we helped her. Is that too much to ask?" For the first time, I felt the room lean toward her. And I realized, if I didn't turn this tide soon, my silence would drown me. That's section 2. The emotional build-up. Tension rising, sympathy shifting toward the manipulative family. While Diana stays controlled but under pressure. The words left my mouth like a stone through glass. My college fund. The audience. once shifting uneasily toward my parents' performance, froze. Even the reporter's furious typing stuttered. Years of. My mother's face stiffened, the mask of grief cracking for the briefest instant. She recovered quickly, letting out a laugh too sharp, too brittle. Don't listen to her. We use that money for family emergencies. Of. What parents wouldn't? I stepped closer to the edge of the stage, my heels biting into the marble. An emergency is a hospital bill, a mortgage payment, a job loss. Not Marcus blowing $200,000 on poker at the Bellagio. Gasps rippled like a wave. Cameras lifted higher. The spotlight was no longer hers. It was mine. Marcus's jaw clenched. His fingers twitched against the cast, eyes darting between me and the audience. He'd been exposed. But he wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. My father stumbled to his feet, voice trembling, but louder now, desperate. We did what we had to do. We kept you alive, didn't we? Fed you, clothed you, gave you a roof. Everything you have started with us. I turned toward him, my chest tight, but my voice steady. Parenting is not an investment portfolio. You don't raise a child expecting dividends. And you don't steal their future and call it sacrifice. A murmur of agreement stirred. James Mitchell's brow furrowed, intrigued now, weighing the scales. The Yamamoto delegation leaned forward, translators whispering rapidly. The tide was shifting again, but not enough, because my mother wasn't finished. Her tears came suddenly, perfectly timed, streaking her mascara in dark rivers. You see, she wailed, clutching her pearls like a crucifix. Hurtless. Cold. What kind of daughter keeps receipts against her own family? I wanted to scream back. I wanted to shout about every night I cried into borrowed textbooks. Every humiliation of explaining to professors why I couldn't afford fees. Every hour spent at dead end jobs while Marcus chased neon lights and dice. But I didn't scream. Instead, I reached into my bag, feeling the envelope's sharp edges. Its weight steadied me. Years of. Reminded me that preparation was louder than anger. I let my hand rest there, visible enough for the audience to notice. Phones zoomed in. Whispers grew. Receipts? I said softly into the microphone, locking eyes with my mother. That's exactly what I kept. Her expression faltered. Just for a moment. But it was enough. I turned back to the crowd, my voice stronger now. 5 years ago, I lost my Stanford scholarship because I couldn't pay the deposit. Because the money was gone. I worked 60-hour weeks while Marcus was in Vegas. And when I begged for help, just $50 for books, I got silence. That's the truth. The ballroom was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. And as I slid the envelope onto the podium, a single thought seared through me. This is it. No turning back. That's section 4. The stakes rising, sympathy shifting, and Diana preparing the audience, and herself, for the hard evidence. We feel her inner pain, her control, and the gathering weight before the explosive climax. The envelope sat on the podium like a live grenade. Every phone in the room tilted toward it. My mother's eyes narrowed. Marcus shifted his weight, restless. My father muttered something under his breath that sounded like prayer. I slid the flap open. Paper whispered as I drew out the first sheet. This, I said, raising it high so the front row could see, is the trust fund my grandmother left me. $200,000, earmarked solely for my education. Drained 2 weeks before tuition was due. A gasps crackled through the ballroom like static. My mother lunged forward. Lies, she spat, her voice breaking. Forgery. But I was already holding up the next sheet. Bank records. August 15th. Withdrawal, $200,000. Recipient Robert and Linda Cooper. The crowd murmured, restless. Years of. James Mitchell rose halfway from his chair, squinting at the page as though willing the ink to confirm what he suspected. And here, I continued, my voice steady as stone. Here are my student loan statements. 5 years of debt I never should have had, paid back in full, by me. Alone. The woman in the black suit stepped forward from the shadows at last. Her heels struck the marble like a metronome of inevitability. She opened her leather briefcase and laid out copies across the nearest table, each document tabbed and highlighted. Who is this? My mother demanded, her voice shrill, breaking its practiced rhythm. Catherine Reynolds. The woman said calmly, her voice carrying with surgical precision. Former federal prosecutor. Miss Cooper's counsel for the last 2 years. It was as if the air itself recoiled. My parents froze. Realization dawning. Reynolds lifted a notarized page. Exhibit E Loan Agreement, signed by Robert and Linda Cooper. Acknowledging the withdrawal as a debt owed to their daughter. With 10% interest. On my father's face drained of color. Why? We didn't. Page 3. Reynolds interrupted smoothly, tapping the signatures. Notarized. August 20th, 2016. The room erupted in whispers. Phones swung to capture every word, every reaction. Marcus stumbled forward, voice cracking. This isn't about papers.
This is about blood. Family. She'd let me die.
I stepped down from the stage until we were face to face, the lights blazing above us. My voice cut through his desperation. You want truth, Marcus. You gambled my entire college fund in a single weekend. You stole my laptop, sold it for cocaine. You opened credit cards in my name. And every time, I pointed at our parents, trembling now, covered for you. Every crisis, every theft, every lie, until I was the only one left to pay the price. The silence afterward was different. Heavy. Absolute. Marcus's lips parted, but no words came. His casted arm dropped to his side, defeated. My mother's mascara-streaked face was a mask of fury and fear. My father stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. I turned back to the audience, my chest heaving. So no, I won't sell my apartment. 12 years of. I won't save him again. Because what you're watching right now isn't family. It's theft dressed up as love. The words landed like a gavel. The room exhaled 200 breaths at once. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one on trial. 2. That's section 5. The climax revelations. Legal, proof, lawyers reveal, and Diana's devastating confrontation with her brother. For a long, breathless moment, the ballroom was suspended in silence. 200 people sitting in the wreckage of a family laid bare. My parents stood, frozen, Marcus's chest heaving, Catherine's documents spread like weapons on the marble floor. Then, slowly, James Mitchell began to clap. Deliberate, steady, like a judge delivering a verdict. The sound cracked the stillness. One by one, others joined. Dr. Harrison, the Yamamoto delegation, my team in the back row. Within seconds, the ballroom thundered with applause. Not polite. Not obligatory. Fierce. Defiant. My mother staggered back as if struck. Marcus swore under his breath. My father closed his eyes. For once, the performance had failed. Catherine leaned toward me. They won't forgive this, she murmured. I nodded. Good. Because forgiveness wasn't the goal. Freedom was. The rest blurred, security escorting them out. Investors crowding me with questions, the press circling like bees with microphones for stingers. But through it all, one truth cut sharp and clear: the spell was broken. For years, guilt had been my leash. 12 years of. Every achievement chained to their demands, every paycheck a reminder that survival came at the cost of silence. But tonight, in the brightest room of my life, I severed it. Later, alone in my apartment, the same one they demanded I sell, I stood at the window. The city stretched out like circuitry glowing against the dark. For the first time, the walls didn't feel haunted by their voices. They felt mine, earned, untouchable. I thought about Marcus, 12 years of. About the boy who once built Lego towers with me on our bedroom floor, who laughed until we couldn't breathe. 12 years of. I thought about my mother before manipulation hardened her into performance, about my father before defeat bent his spine. I loved those versions. I always would. But love isn't a hall pass for destruction. Some families teach you loyalty. Mine taught me boundaries. Catherine's words replayed in my head. They won't forgive this. Maybe not. Maybe they would return, claws sharper, voices louder. Maybe silence would be their weapon this time. But whatever form it took, I wasn't afraid anymore. Because the truth had teeth now, and I wasn't alone in holding it. 6 months later, when Medivera rang the opening bell on Wall Street, my team stood beside me, cheering. Investors, partners, patients, we'd built something unshakable. The ghosts of that night were still with me, but not as shackles, as proof. And when the cameras flashed, I didn't think about my mother's tears or my father's knees on marble. Years of. I thought about the girl who once believed her future was gone when her college fund disappeared. Of. The girl who clawed her way back with ramen dinners, night shifts, and sheer refusal to break. That girl had become this woman. So when the final reporter asked, what's the most important thing you've learned? I smiled and gave them the truth. I wished someone had told me years ago. You don't owe anyone your ruin, not even family. The room went still. Pens stopped scratching. Cameras froze. And for once, the silence belonged to me. That's section 6, an ending with emotional closure, poetic weight, and a haunting final line that reframes Diana's arc.